Hello and welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. This is episode 26 and our guest today is Daniel Leonard. Daniel's a really good friend of mine. We grew up in Blountstown, Florida. We've known each other for about, I'd say 28 years, which is basically how old we are. Our dads were best friends. Our dads taught in the same school system in Calhoun County, Florida. Daniel grew up in a very forestry-rich environment with his parents and kind of their timber farm. We have a lot of passion for agriculture. We were both in FFA. We both went to the same land-grant university at the University of Florida, and he is now an extension agent. He used to be an extension agent in Walton County, but he just took up a position in our home county of Calhoun County, Florida, as their extension director. Daniel's going to talk to us about the job of an extension agent, their Master Gardener program, thoughts on the farmer-consumer relationship, and also how much I suck at fantasy football. So it's a really cool conversation. I really hope you enjoy it. Again, this is episode 26 with Daniel Leonard. Well, welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. Daniel Leonard, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great since I'm talking to you, buddy boy.
It's been a while.
So it has been a while. So we've had the pleasure. Man, our dads are best friends, and then now we're best friends. We went to the same. All right, let me see if I can do this without messing up. Elementary school, middle school, high school, community college, university. So everything. We've known each other for quite a while. So
that is true. We've gone to the same school since we were 5 years old.
It's like we can't get away from each other, man.
I know. And I'm going to see you at the end of the month for a fantasy football draft too. So
man, I'm hoping not to finish in the bottom two for the first time ever. So I'm going to actually do research in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how that does.
You've got such a solid streak going on. You might not should mess with it.
I know. I mean, hey, if it's consistent, better to just be consistently bad than to get good for 1 year than just be bad the next year. So Daniel, you are an extension agent with the University of Florida. Well, hang on. Before we get into that, tell me about kind of your start in agriculture, kind of how you got bit with the agriculture bug.
Oh my. So as you know, I go way back in ag. I grew up on a timber farm. My folks have owned and operated for about the last 60 years. And of course, we've been involved in timber for over 100 years in one way or another. But owned a farm in Calhoun County, Florida for about 60 years. So I grew up on that and, just going out, controlled burns in the wintertime, trimming brush and trimming logging roads in the summertime. Can't say that was the most fun thing I ever did. If it was probably just that, I would not still be in agriculture because forestry didn't really do it for me, to be honest with you. It wasn't until I got in high school through FFA and was exposed to some other aspects of ag that I really got interested in the field. We were in FFA together for a while.
We were, man. We were back in the 4 years in high school. Good old times.
I mean, I wasn't the big shot state officer like you, but we did do a lot of competitions. We traveled a lot together. We did. The Leonards for sure had an advantage in our good mutual friend Max Hernan and his brother Stuart also had a mutual advantage in forestry, a little unfair advantage. So we tag teamed different groups of Leonards and Herndons on that forestry team for a few years and just won several national competitions. And we both of our families have been involved in ag for a long time, in forestry in particular. So that was a really good experience. But it wasn't until Ron Mears led me into the horticulture and landscape FFA competition that I really got interested in ag, to be honest with you. And then I call him my horticultural mentor, Mr. Tommy Williams, who is actually was distantly related to you, since passed on. Sort of became my mentor in that, and he helped me root my first hydrangea and helped me build a little propagation area at my house, and man, that's just what got me into it. And so since then, horticulture has always been my thing. I'm, not into the agronomy side as much, though I have gotten into that a little more recently. But since that was about when I was 14. So, for the last 14 or so years, I've been, all in headfirst into production horticulture. And I started in high school working for Oglesby Plants International when we were seniors. Worked a couple hours a week and then through Chipola College. Oglesby was a great experience. Tommy was their electrician, and so he introduced me up there to him. He helped Mr. Ray Oglesby get started when they first moved their production facility up from Hollywood, Florida to Alpha, Florida, the big city.
The booming metropolis of Alpha.
The booming metropolis of Alpha, Florida, for sure. But little would anybody know, they employ nearly 100 people and are one of the world's leaders in tropical foliage production and research. So they're an outstanding company, and the friends I made there, and just being exposed to like large scale production horticulture, that was an incredible experience, and just confirmed for me that I was going down the right path. But to be totally honest with you, I kind of diverted from agriculture there for a few years. Would you like to guess why that happened?
No. Why did that happen?
I was smitten by a lady.
Okay.
Yeah, so I became an English major. I thought I wanted to go to law school. While all this was going on, I had since worked. I had quit Oglesby to pursue that, school full time, and was an English major. I interned a little bit with a local attorney, and so anyway, I thought I wanted to be an attorney, and I followed this girl to the University of West Florida in Pensacola as an English major, and before school even started, we broke up. So,
plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist. So I decided that I did not want to spend the next 2 years of my life in the same classes as her. She is a wonderful person, I'm sure, but that just wasn't a thing that I was interested in doing. So this is not about agriculture at all, but it leads me back there. While I was in Pensacola, I said, I'm not going to do English. What on earth am I going to do? I'm at UWF. They're mostly known for like marine science, and actually they have a good archaeology program of all things. But none of that really interested me. So I said, what can I do? I love horticulture. Let me see about that. And so I was contemplating a move to Gainesville, and then randomly my mom texted me one day and said, Daniel, there is a horticulture program through UF at Milton. And I was like, what the heck? I have an apartment in Pensacola. I can just commute there, and that'll work out great. So, that couldn't have worked out greater. I got to study under some of the, great professors, Dr. Brian Unruh, maybe the world's leader in turfgrass research, and now an extension specialist and associate center director, was my primary professor and my advisor. So that was just an incredible experience also. And so it's just weird how life works out, man. Like I was thinking I was going to have to move 400 miles to Gainesville, and it's one text. My mom goes, they have a campus in Milton. It really did change my life. And so I got back in. My major was environmental horticulture. So that's what I did, and that's how I got back into horticulture. I interned several times. That's one thing I would say to anybody listening to this podcast in the future that is interested in a career in agriculture or horticulture, any other agribusiness, is get your feet out there and just intern and work for as many different types of firms as you can to kind of see where your niche is, because I never would have known that my niche was going to be where it wound up being had I not first worked for Oglesby, and then interned with Flowerwood Nurseries, one of the largest nurseries in the United States, and then meeting people at trade shows and talking to them and learning their business, and finally I interned at Panhandle Growers International, a really big ornamental tree farm, shade trees, field dug, balled and burlap. That's where I interned the last time. I was actually offered jobs at 3 places I interned out of college, and picked Panhandle Growers. And so there began my actual career in agriculture. That's a long way of saying where I got to. I worked there for 3 years. That's a production horticulture is an interesting field. Like I mostly dealt with, because we're a commodity. We can't pay that well, so you mostly are dealing with high school dropouts and H2A.
Yeah, that's true.
Learned a lot of Spanish and learned a lot of construction type stuff. I learned how to drive a semi and a loader, a skid steer, but the production techniques and all of that I learned at integrated pest management, everything I learned there has really been invaluable.
Pretty good story. You never know where you're going to wind up, and it's pretty good. You got 3 3 offers from all the places you interned at. I mean, yeah, like you were saying, interning is a great way to kind of not only learn some like real world application, but also a really good thing to like make some connections for whenever you actually got to go get a job. You have people, some people that can kind of vouch for you. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah, so it's just real cool to think about like where your life could have gone had you taken these different opportunities. Like one of the firms I was offered a job at out of college is now a medical marijuana grower. So that would have been completely different than where I wanted to be, and I'm glad that didn't work out. But I'm glad things worked out the way they are, and I feel like I've had a major impact. Been able to have a major impact on more people as an extension agent. But getting back to what you just said there, yeah, you never know. Like with the places, I've made some amazing contacts through those different internships, and I've actually had a chance to use all of the people that I've met, contacts at Flowerwood, at Panhandle Growers. They've all taught classes for me in extension. They've just been great sponsors and advocates for the commercial horticulture industry and extension as a whole. So,
well, there you go, man. It's not. I've learned more and more. It's not what you know. It's who you know.
Oh,
so it sounds like you got some really good contacts there too.
I mean, the University of Florida is an amazing college, but I learned probably 80% of what I know in horticulture through working. So there's only so much you can learn in the classroom and reading the textbook, to be honest.
Oh yeah, no. When I went through the ag ed program at UF, I learned a lot of really good stuff. But you don't really learn until you're actually teaching or until you're interning. Then you learn how to actually handle kids, how to handle lesson plans. So yeah, real world learning's always kicking the butt of classroom learning. That's for sure.
It sure has, and you got to learn as I did that the public is a fascinating place.
It is extremely fascinating. Extremely.
We'll later, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So all right. So you're an extension agent, and we've interviewed one before from Maryland, and I know most counties in the U.S. have some sort of extension agency from that state's land grant college or land grant university. Tell me specifically, what does your job of an extension agent do? So what is your exact job?
So, yeah, I mean, as your listeners who listen to that podcast with a gentleman from Maryland know, extension is a cooperation between the federal, state, and county governments and the land grant institutions in each state to deliver that research-based information from the agricultural colleges to the public. And that's really what I do on a daily basis. My title is the Walton County Residential and Commercial Horticulture Agent. And so my clientele are literally every person, my potential clientele are every single person who lives in Walton County, and the commercial guys, the landscape professionals who maintain, those landscapes. And within commercial horticulture, as Walton County defines it in my job description, I also get to interact with some protected ag growers like hydroponic producers, commercial nurseries, and which we have actually several commercial nurseries. So that's really fun. That kind of lets me do what I'm really passionate with. But extension is amazing, man. I honestly, I'm one of the people, I'm totally guilty. I had no idea what extension was when I was growing up. Because, we were a large timber producer, and let's be honest, it's not that hard to stick a tree in the ground and wait 20 years and then cut it down, Yeah. I know that there is a lot more to it than that, but extension just in our county did not have much to offer in the way of forestry resources. So we dealt more with the Florida Department of Ag and the Florida Forestry Association and Florida Forest Service. So I didn't know a whole lot about extension when I started, but I've come to know extension is just such a great resource to bring research to the public. I mean, there is just an incredible amount of misinformation out there and just a craving of people for good information. And so that's probably the number one thing I do on a daily basis, actually. I think it's the most important thing I do is dispel misinformation. In a lot of ways, the internet and Google is incredible. You can Google anything. My plant has black things on the leaves. What is wrong with it? And you can get a lot of answers. But, there's a lot of bad information out there, too. And that's one of our primary jobs is just to be a filter for that and offer information that's actually research-based and productive as opposed to things that are just straight up wrong. I don't know if you've interviewed anyone that's talked much about the glyphosate issue, but that's just a good example of some of the misinformation that I deal with on a daily basis. That's probably the most popular topic, to be honest.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, that's really popular right now.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, Roundup is killing me and my kids and my plants and everything. It's in our water. It's like, no, it's actually not. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of misinformation out there. Glyphosate. We'll just take this example for a minute. Like, it was defined as a probable carcinogen, and what people don't realize is that if glyphosate is taken out of our toolbox, we're going to be relying on things that are much harsher, much more expensive than glyphosate. For instance, there's a number of products that are not probable carcinogens, but just straight up will cause cancer, if incorrectly used for a long time, that are much more dangerous than glyphosate and not nearly as effective. And so the plight I have is sort of connecting the horticulture, we'll call them producers, but they're really landscape professionals in this case, with the consumer who, don't understand what it takes to make it in the industry, and have a lot of misinformation about what is and isn't good. And so just dispelling misinformation is probably the biggest thing I do. And the second thing Extension is that's a really good benefit is just to be a great diagnostic tool for all types of clientele. Even for the big companies, the big farmers, we're still a trusted diagnostic tool because there's just a limit to things that you can look up on the internet accurately and get information about. So somebody can text me a picture of a leaf, and without driving anywhere or really even talking to them, I can tell them what that plant is, what's going on with it, and that's just really powerful for people. That's something that Extension does really, really well, and I'm proud to do. The third thing that we do that's really important in commercial horticulture is pesticide licensure. And so this is something that I really try to educate my residential clientele on. Hey, all of these folks that are applying pesticides have been trained by me or people like me, and really they have to go through an intense class and intense training and get a license, and they really know what they're doing. They have to sit through continuing education every year. And so we try to make this as safe and as research-based as possible for everybody. And so just keeping those commercial guys on their toes is something that we do. And finally, just Florida-friendly landscaping. Are you familiar with FFL at all?
Yeah.
So Florida-friendly landscaping is a huge thing as Florida grows. Walton County actually is one of the fastest-growing counties in the country. It is currently the fastest-growing county in the state. And so with that, almost all of our growth is south of the bay, where they have almost none of one vital resource. Do you know what that resource might be?
What is that resource?
That resource is water.
Really?
Yeah. So there's basically no fresh water along the coastline. So what we put in from North Walton, north of the bay, down to South Walton, so everybody can flush their toilets and drink clean water and do all that good stuff and take a shower. So people at the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program was just developed really to be a conservation tool for our water resources, because ultimately that's the limiting factor in Florida is water. And that's probably the most important resource that we have. Our tourism depends on it. Our literal livelihood depends on it. So Florida-friendly landscaping is basically just using landscaping in a smart way to maximize our resources and sort of minimize our inputs while still being an attractive landscape. So I help with that program. And the fifth thing that I do that really brings me joy on a daily basis is just being a general consultant and dealing with the public. Man, the public is such a strange place, an interesting place.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, especially with the glyphosate stuff going on right now. I mean, people are like, oh, it's killing us. It's in all of our food. Yeah. And kind of how you're talking about how people that apply pesticides, they go through trainings, and people don't realize that at all. And so I'm sure you get frustrated answering the same questions over and over and over again, just about the same fears that all these people have.
Yeah, it's like if I have one more homeowner tell me they refuse to have glyphosate applied in their yard, I'm gonna have a fit. Like they're like, glyphosate it's in my water, and I'm like, glyphosate is broken down into basically inert ingredients pretty much immediately after it hits the soil. Like if it doesn't contact living plant tissue, it's almost immediately broken down through natural processes. So it's one of the best weed killers we have, and one of the most environmentally friendly, which the general public just chooses to ignore that. Like Some of the more popular chemicals that we've used in recent years, almost everybody's heard of atrazine. There's not a single water sample taken in the state of Florida that does not have some atrazine in it. And that's a harmful chemical, and that's really scary. And that's an example of a class of chemicals that does get in our groundwater and is used widely, and is going to be used more widely if we lose glyphosate, which is something that is a real thing. Miami-Dade, the city of Miami has actually banned glyphosate, and there's been several municipalities across the state of Florida that have banned it. And when that happens, you force landscape professionals to turn to products that in many cases are harsher and in most cases are more expensive. And so yard care is going to become more expensive. That's a major product that farmers use. So food is going to become more expensive. So when you take something out of the arsenal for no real scientific reason, that really causes some problems. And that's one thing I think Extension does a great job of, is just connecting these people with actual science and fact, So just because you read it on Facebook doesn't mean it's true.
Preach. Yeah, we interviewed a farmer, and I want to buy one of her shirts that says "Ask a farmer, not Google." And so I'm going to buy one and make you one that says "Ask an extension agent, not Google."
Yes, please. Before you Google something, just give us a call, man.
Who are you going to call? Your local extension agent.
Your local county extension agent. There is one of us in all 67 counties in the state of Florida. So Florida has one of the strongest extension programs in the country. And just use it. We're here for you. We're literally funded by your tax dollars. So you let your tax dollars work for you. This is one of the few government programs where you get direct benefit regardless of who you are. So utilize us. But with that, I would say that we talked a little bit earlier. Like, this is my last month on the job in Walton County. I'm actually moving home back to Calhoun County, where I will be the county extension director. And my job is going to expand a bit because it is a sort of a one-man show. I won't get to specialize quite as much. I won't be just horticulture. I'll be the agriculture, the horticulture, and the natural resources extension agent in that county. So I'm looking forward to sort of expanding my reach a little bit into my home county, our home county, and helping folks there. Because goodness gracious, they could use it.
They need it. Yeah, you're going to be not just an extension agent there. You're going to be the extension agent there.
We have a 4-H agent, but as far as production, ag, and hort and natural resources go, I'll be it.
You will be it. What are some challenges that you are expecting that you're going to have once you get there, and kind of like try to help it grow a little bit? So what are some challenges you think you're going to face there?
Yeah, so challenge number one would be that Extension's perception there is not fantastic. I mentioned that I was not super aware of Extension coming up. A lot of the farmers and ranchers and timber producers and horticulture producers there just don't utilize Extension all that much because there hasn't been a strong presence off and on throughout the years. So just challenge number one is just becoming a trusted resource, being there. Challenge number two, my background is in horticulture. There's several major horticulture producers there. Getting in with those guys. And then finally, there's a ton of folks that have landscapes that are now bare after Hurricane Michael. So just helping people re-landscape smartly and make good decisions in their landscape is going to be important as far as horticulture goes.
What about the forestry side of things? Are you going to kind of bring some more stuff to the table for all the timber industry that's there?
Yeah, for sure. There's over 100,000 acres, I would guess, or close to it, of timberland in Calhoun County, maybe more than that, private timberland. And being able to host forums and bring specialists in to, give some programs that will be of value to those folks. And maybe host a controlled burning class from time to time, or, give a farm tour of a forestry operation from time to time, and just raise awareness of that industry. Because unfortunately, as we have seen after Hurricane Michael with the government response and just the really sad nature of people forgetting that it even happened because it happened in a rural place where people aren't aware that major agriculture industry occurs. Just bringing some awareness of that, will be important to me.
Yeah, I mean, like places like Marietta, Sneads, Bluntstown, Clarksville, places like that are still struggling. And we talked with Will, your good old cousin, a few days ago, and he was talking about how Bluntstown's still struggling. And he said that your brother David did the math, and there was enough tree damage to stretch around the world like 2.5 times just based on the tree damage that they had to pick up. That is nuts, man.
Yeah, if you just lay the trees end to end, you could wrap around the world twice just in that 30-mile swath that Hurricane Michael had. So and you would know David would be the one who would do some math like that. So
oh yeah, but, he's a smart cookie, man.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. But yeah, that is honestly, I was waffling back and forth. Don't let my parents listen to this because they think I was coming home the whole time. But there was definitely a time when I was like, I don't know. After a big hurricane like that, and all that devastation, do I really want to move there? And really, the just more than even family being there was just being able to help a community like that and knowing that I can have an impact on people's lives day to day. That's just an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. So it's a challenge, and I'm looking forward to it.
No, I mean, I don't blame you. Have you ever heard of this thing called the rural brain drain?
Yes. So
I had not heard of it, and it was so fascinating to hear about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's really unfortunate. Like, let's just take my immediate family. So there's 5 of us, myself and my brother, and then my 3 first cousins, Will, Michael, and JP. I had to leave because there was not a burgeoning horticulture industry that was there to keep me. You had to leave. There was not an opportunity there, and you're not in our family, but just as an example, David, my brother, is an engineer and wants to be a dentist. He's probably, there's not room. There's maybe room for one dentist in Blountstown, and that's it. So he's going to have to live somewhere else. JP wants to be an attorney, same thing. And Will and Michael, if the forestry industry doesn't get some federal aid and some things get figured out, they're going to have to leave because there's not going to be work for them. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like, and we could name off folks, some of the really, I would call them achievers out of our high school class. Almost all of them are no longer in Blountstown and rural places like that because that's not where the industry is. And so that's why some of these places, I think, really stagnate. And when you get something like Hurricane Michael, why it really affects these communities and they don't just bounce back like they do in other places, just because the people aren't there that can do those things.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing something after it was like a week after Hurricane Michael when people were still struggling to get power back, and it said like Bay County has like 80% power back, Gulf County has 90% power back, Calhoun County had 2%. 2% of the people in Calhoun County had power. Other 98% no power yet, but nobody would cover that.
No, that's not going to make the news because we're a rural farming community. I mean, all we do is put toilet paper in your bathroom and food on your table, but we're not important, So that's part of my job is to change that perception.
Well, hey, man. Well, best of luck to you. I mean, you're going to be the extension agent. I mean, you've always been my go-to horticulturalist, and I probably bombarded you with, oh man, what's wrong with my coleus now? What's wrong with my little fruit tree right now? So
yeah, what's that thing you had in your backyard? Is it even there anymore? There was tree. I don't know. You probably got blown away. I don't even know.
So Allie just walked in. She's probably gonna slap me for talking about this, but we thought it would be really cool to have like a wedding tree for our wedding. You know how people get like a wedding
the citrus
or whatever.
Tree. That's right.
Yeah. So we got a citrus tree, and it was a lemon and lime tree, and so it was doing pretty well. We had it indoors back when we lived in our apartment. Then we moved to a house. We had it outside. Well, it would struggle. I would send you pictures, and man, it's dead. But luckily, our marriage is strong, but our tree is dead.
Did it die?
It did die. It's it's still in our garage with the pot, with the sticks. It's still there, but I'm just too ashamed to throw it out. Actually, hold on.
I'm not gonna get the opportunity to put you in my annual report as a success story, but that's okay.
Well,
I don't know. Don't have a future as a citrus farmer.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you the whole story though. So we decided on a crepe myrtle, and I was like, oh, this would be beautiful. So I went to the store to buy a crepe myrtle or a nursery, and it was January, so you probably know what I'm getting at. Yeah. I come home, it's a bunch of sticks with no leaves, and Allie's like, we're not going to use that. I was like, okay, well, let's go buy something else. So she picked out a citrus tree, which is fine. So the citrus tree died. The crepe myrtle was doing a little bit okay, and then all of a sudden, it died, found a whole bunch of ants in it, so we went 0 for 2 for our wedding trees. So our marriage is still going okay, but the wedding trees were kind of gone.
Yeah, maybe we need to do something else there. That's pretty funny. I've I have a Japanese persimmon in my front yard. I love persimmon fruit. But anyway, every winter when it loses its leaves, Allie asks me what that dead stick is in our front yard. It's like you didn't notice it. You never notice it when it A, has leaves on it, or B, has fruit on it. You just see it when it's a quote unquote dead stick. So
you only notice it when it's dead, not when it's pretty, but when it's
exactly
dead.
Yeah, it's just expected to be pretty, and when it's not, it's a dead stick. So this is the way it is.
That's awesome. Well, Daniel, this has been cool. You've said if people want to learn more about extension, if they have a question about some plants or anything, they can go. Basically, they've got to find their local land-grant university. So here it's UF. So they just got to find an extension agent through UF. Where else can they go, especially here in Florida, for some really good information about taking care of their gardens, or just to get better agriculture information?
So there is a number. Of course, we're going to start you with extension every time, because that is, in my opinion, the premier unbiased source of information. We're not unbiased with our football teams, go Gators, but we are unbiased when it comes to research. And so we're going to give you what we know, up to date. And so that's where I would point people first, is to their local county extension office. Every county in the state of Florida has their extension office, and every extension office has a website. So if you don't actually want to go to your extension office, give them a holler on the phone, check out their website, shoot them an email, something like that. The next place I would point folks to for horticulture advice is just your local independent nursery. I shop at the big box nurseries all the time, but unfortunately their employees there might have spent the previous shift in lumber. They just don't know a whole lot about the plants out there. So if you want to go learn something about plants, hit up your independent nurseries and garden centers and check out those purveyors. And in particular, if you're lucky enough to have a nursery that's in the Florida Association of Native Nurseries, that is an excellent resource. Those people are super knowledgeable. One of my current master gardeners owns a native nursery. And man, those folks are passionate about what they do and are super happy to answer questions. And so that's where I would point them to there. And then just for general agricultural information, search out places like your podcast, your website, and other places that are giving you the facts. Please don't get your like we talked about, don't get your information on Facebook or Google. So if you do,
yeah, exactly.
One thing I always tell clients, if you're going to Google something related to ag or horticulture or something like that, always Google and then put a .edu, or, trust those sources that have that .edu or .gov behind them, because those are going to be university sources, government sources, and that's going to be, research-based, non-biased information. We don't have a product to sell. We're just giving you the facts.
I like it, man. All really, really good points. Talking about the chain store ones, that always reminds me of the meme, when Ron Swanson goes to a Home Depot or a Lowe's or whatever, and the guy's like, "Hey, man, do you need help?" He just says, "I know more than you, son."
It's so true.
It's so great.
I'll go to Lowe's a couple of times a week. We have actually a pretty good garden center at our Lowe's here in Defuniak. I'll go there several times a week and just see people making terrible decisions with the plants that they're picking out. And I so bad want to go up and be like, "Ma'am, please don't pick that. Go pick this instead." And anyway, I just can't do it. It's such a struggle.
I can imagine. It's like, "Hey, it's my job to not tell you what to buy that plant. So please trust me. Don't buy that plant. Don't listen to the employee."
Yeah, I mean, and Lowe's, they have this. Are you familiar with their 1 year guarantee on plants?
No, I didn't know that. That's a thing.
Yeah, so when I see people buying some of this stuff, these people are buying tulips, and tulips want to grow in Holland and Canada and these wonderful places like that. They don't want to grow in the dang heat and the humidity and all the rain and all that stuff we have here. Every plant disease known to man loves it. All the insects love it. And so anyway, you might as well, I want to tell the people that work at Lowe's, you're going to see that guy in a year. You might as well just go ahead and set that money aside, because you're going to be giving it back, because you're selling them stuff that is not going to work. So anyway, that's my soapbox rant for today.
That's hilarious. That's a good rant to end on, though. I like that. Yeah, I mean, if something's not going to grow in a cold climate and then grow here in hot, humid Florida.
Yeah, I mean, and people don't realize that. And I mean, whatever your thoughts are on climate change or anything, it's probably not going to get a lot cooler and nicer here in the near future. So, plan for the heat.
That's a fact.
That's a fact, Jack. And so also related to Parks and Rec, man, I am not watching. I watched Parks and Rec actually when it was a thing on TV. But you know what I'm just discovered?
Did you just discover The Office?
Oh, I did. I just discovered The Office. I am 28 years old. It is 2019, and I just discovered the world of The Office.
Well, okay, not to get you even more excited, and I am stoked about this, but so Steve Carell, who is Michael on The Office,
Sure,
he
Michael
is teaming
Scott,
with
my
Netflix.
hero, the Lord and Savior.
The best boss there is.
Yes, the world's greatest boss.
World's great. That's what it is. The world's greatest boss mug. He and Netflix are teaming up to make a TV show about the Space Force, and it's gonna be just like The Office. It's gonna be amazing.
I hope so. Man, I'm almost done because like I'm scared to death that I'm not going to finish it because NBC is coming out with their new streaming service and I have Netflix and like they're going to take The Office off, so I'm scrambling to finish. We've binged like 6 seasons in the last 3 weeks. It's absurd.
You're going to have to binge the rest of it real quick.
Yeah, because like there's just a limit to how many subscriptions I'm going to have. Like I've got the Hulu, I've got the Netflix. I've got the ESPN, I've got my cable. I just, you can't have everything. So
you've got the necessities right now.
Yeah, you got to have my sports. So I have to keep the cable, and like many people, I'm curious before I say this, how do you get Amazon?
So if you have Amazon Prime, all you've got to do is just download the Prime app on TV or whatever.
I'm aware of this. I have a Fire Stick. However, my mom has an Amazon Prime account.
Oh yeah, use hers. We use my parents.
You see where? Oh yeah. So Amazon is not making any money on me right now because I use my mom's Prime because I'm a millennial and that's what we do is mooch off our parents for as long as possible. Apparently.
Hey, I mean you're not wrong at all.
I mean I have my mom's Prime, my sister-in-law's Netflix, so I do have my own cable and sports and everything. So I'm not a total mooch. Well,
that's a plus. I mean we get all of our cable channels through my pa-in-law, and then my parents' Netflix, Allie's Netflix, Allie's parents' Netflix. So yeah, typical millennials.
That's okay. We're just milking the system.
We're milking the system, and that's okay. That's all that matters. We're enjoying it, and that's all that matters.
We didn't make the system. We're just living in it.
The system's broke, and we're just taking advantage of it. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's right. Man, it's been great.
It's been a cool conversation, man. We'll have to touch base with you soon about something else in general.
Yeah, man, we'll reconnect once I'm in Calhoun County and get that figured out. But I'll probably
you have to let me know how that's going.
It's been good talking to you.
Likewise, I'll see you in 15 days for our fantasy draft. I love you, but I hope your team loses.
No, you changed the date.
Oh, when is it?
August 30th.
August 30th. Okay, I can do August 30th.
It's still a Friday.
Okay.
But it's August 30th.
Let me write that down.
This is 100% getting cut, but that's okay.
It is. That's totally okay. Like I've said, the podcast is made in the edit.
But 2 weeks after August the 30th.
Okay. Perfect. August 30th. Deal. Well, Daniel, thanks for being on the podcast, man. Take care. Thanks for being on. We'll touch base with you soon.
It's been a pleasure, my man. Have a good one.
Cool, man.